Hey guys, Ronin here. Welcome back to the Retrocade. It is Saturday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another Sports Saturday, and we are going back in time to 1987 and playing the Konami NES classic, Double Dribble. If you're new to the channel, be sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell for the latest updates on new content. We post 3 times a week and twice on the weekends. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for our Sucker Punch Sunday feature, where we will test out and revisit a classic fighting or fighting platform game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th generation. Also, if there's a game you'd like to see featured on the channel, be sure to leave a comment below or drop us a tweet at @Retrocade. We are now live on Twitter. Again, that is @Retrocade. And your options are from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2. Now, I will freely admit that if you had told me 40 years ago that one of the first modern sports games at the time I would play would be a basketball game by a company I had not yet heard of, I would have thought you were out of your mind. But in the now 34 years since Konami first released this game, it remains far and away one of my favorite basketball games of all time, and also one of my favorite sports games of all time. And the reason why is because the presentation of it for the time was so revolutionary compared to what came before in the 4-bit era. And also, as you'll see as we're playing this game, the simplicity of it belies the complexity of it, in that it is a very fast-paced, kinetic, easy-to-follow sports game. They didn't overcomplicate it. They didn't try and throw in a lot of the frills and stuff that you would see later on in later games for the 16, 32-bit eras and so on. But that's not to say it wasn't, for the time, it was a very revolutionary game. So we're going to play this one today, and what we're going to do is we're going to set this for a 10-minute time limit for each quarter, and you have 3 options for your teams. You play against, because this was also a game that was pre-licensing, you don't have official names. So in this case, we have the New York Eagles, we have the Chicago Oxen, because you couldn't use the Chicago Bulls, even though that's what we all called them, and you have the Los Angeles Waves. The team we are playing in green, the CPU, is the Boston Frogs, because you could use the Boston Celtics. And being a Boston kid, born and raised, it always ticked me off a little bit that I couldn't play as them. I have to play against them. So for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to play as the New York Eagles, and we're going to play at level 2. Because level 1 is, if you know how to play this game, it can be way too easy, it can be overkill. 2 provides a bit of a challenge. 3 is, right now, given that I haven't played this in a long time, it would probably be one where I get slaughtered, and I freely admit, being the arbitrator of this channel and having had my butt handed to me the last 2 games we have played on Sports Saturdays, I want to win one. So we're going to go ahead and get this one underway. It should take about half an hour to play. Now I'm going to pause it right here because I want to explain this to you. So how this game was laid out is part of what made it so great. As you can see, all the character sprites and everything are pretty easy to follow in that Konami way. Konami, to their credit, and this is something they would replicate across all their 8-bit sports games, and for people who malign Konami now for what they have done in the 21st century with essentially getting out of video game design and focusing more on pachinko machines and holding a lot of their legacy properties hostage, there was a time, and similar to what I talked about last week with Electronic Arts, that Konami not only made really good games, but they made really great sports games. And Double Dribble was the first great basketball game that I remember playing. And to give you a little bit of context on this, again, I started out my playing life with the Mattel Intellivision, which was a 4-bit console. And everything was really blocky. There was no real depth of feel like you get here with how the court is slightly perspective back and up towards the crowd there, the upper third. It was really bare bones. And while those games were fun, the longevity of them was not great. It wasn't one that I think about now going, well, I would like to really go back and remember what that's like. I would if I want to drive myself nuts. But this game, for what you were able to do graphically, was really revolutionary. Also, as I said, the simplicity of this game lies in the complexity, or doesn't speak of the complexity of it. In order to play this game, you have two functions. You have your A button, your B button, as you did on the standard Nintendo controller. Your A button is your pass and steal button, and I'll show you how the steals work, hopefully, as this game progresses. And B is your jump and shoot button. That's it. So as long as you can keep your buttons straight, you were able to make sure you could get to where you needed to go on the floor. B also changes your players if you want to get near your opposing player who has the ball. B also lets you, when you're on a defense, you can try and block it. Blocks are really hard in this game, but steals I found were a lot easier if you knew how to do it. And from there, it's all a matter of making sure you can move the ball from one side of the floor to the other and get your shots off. The other thing about this game is it was the first one that highlighted dunking. And that was where, if you were in the credits, as I was waiting to get this game started, those little animations of a guy dunking, that was the first time we'd ever seen that in a video game, period. And that blew people's minds in 1987. It was really something that we were like, hey, and that was the time where the dunk had become the real highlight in playing basketball. Because you had guys like Michael Jordan, you had guys like Dominique Wilkins, you had high flyers who could really Spud Webb and guys who were great dunkers back when the slam dunk competition, the All-Star game, was worth watching. That was what you stayed up to watch. And that's not to say that it's not still a part of the game now, but it was so revolutionary at the time because it was still so new and so fresh. And you had guys who really turned it into an art form. So anyway, that's like I said, you have your A button to steal and pass, your B button to jump, block, and shoot. And we're going to just get this going and see what happens over the next 10 minutes. But the great thing about this game was that you didn't have to worry about things like a shot clock. And see right there, I was able, whoop, and I hit the wrong button. See, that's where you have to know, make sure you know where your buttons are. Because it can be very easy if you're not paying attention to inadvertently hit the wrong one, and you end up taking a shot from half court, and nobody out here is Steph Curry. And we got our first dunk, and there we go. And all you have to do is get near the hoop, and that auto function takes over. That will automatically have itself go. Now, to steal the ball, all you have to do is be in proximity of the opposing player with the ball and hit the A button. And there may be a time in this game where they will do the same to me. And that was another part of the challenge. And I missed the dunk, and it still goes in. Try the 3-ball. No. But steal it, get my own rebound, and slam it on home. You always knew when you were taking a 3. Whoop. Got a slight bit of lag here. Sorry about that. Because you would get that little woo sound from when you were behind the arc. But you see the freneticness and the kineticness of this game in that you're just able to get these really sharp passes off. The mechanics of this game really were brilliant for the time. And that's why, now almost 40 years later, you can play this game, you can pick it up, and it's still challenging, and it's still fun. Because in a lot of ways, by keeping it as simple as possible, you didn't have to worry about too much. And I think that to an extent, and as much as I like playing NBA games now, unlike what's happened with franchises like Madden and other sports titles, I think in some ways they might have overdone it with the NBA titles. Because now you have too much to worry about. Especially in terms of the gameplay mechanics. Don't get me wrong. I like the fact that when I'm playing an NBA game and you can do a lot of the franchise stuff where you be like the GM that you used to be able to do in Madden, but you can't do now. 3 ball, no. But I'm on a 22-10 run here. And that's the thing. If you are able to start stacking stuff up in this game... Oh, we already... See, and that's... On level 2, Boston will start stealing it back from you. Whereas in level 1, they hardly ever do. And in level 3, they're merciless. Ah, I hit the wrong button again. See if this one will go. Nope. At least I got the rebound, but I ended up walking out of bounds. You do get fouls in this game. They're fairly rare... But they can happen. And if we do, you'll see how the free throw shots work. But anyway, getting back to my original premise on this, of how modern games are a little bit more overcomplicated in terms of gameplay than... Ah! Keep hitting the wrong button. Go get it. That's going to go out of bounds. I'm so used to playing games where you have to make sure you're doing one thing. There we go. They're letting Boss get back into this. But in modern games, especially with the game mechanics... Now, this is the only problem with having a no shot clock. They can take forever. Is that you're worrying about stuff like doing crossovers and doing jukes and stuff like that. Which, if that's your particular taste in how you play a game, that's fine. I'm not saying it's wrong. But then you come back to a game like this, where all you have to worry about is finding the open man. You can pass it, you can shoot it, get the steal, and you can really rack up high-scoring games, especially in this one where we're going to have 10-minute quarters. I mean, we're already at 34-24. In some aspects, this is already a college basketball game. And we're only 9 minutes in thereabouts. See if I can try 3. Still haven't hit one yet. From the free throw line, nope. Getting offensive rebounds was always a little tough. There's a 3. And you know, they always add a little bit of extra bombast when the ball goes in on a 3, which I dug. As somebody who, you know, I'm all of 5'9", which means when I was a kid, I was your prototypical 98-pound weakling. Oh! 3 ball, no. Being able to shoot from the outside was kind of my bread and butter, especially growing up in Boston in the 80s. I mean, there was no way in the world I was not going to be a Larry Bird fan. And I still contend that I witnessed the greatest basketball I have ever seen in the 1980s, watching my Celtics go up against Magic Johnson and the LA Lakers. And I say that as somebody whose lifespan traverses the entire Michael Jordan era. And I'm not saying that Larry or Magic are the greatest players of all time. I'm biased in that because I'm a Boston kid. And I always will be. But I also will completely defer to the fact that Michael Jordan was a generational talent. I am not damning him with any measure of faint praise at all. But watching Larry and Magic go at it throughout the 80s, I've never seen better basketball as a whole, from top to bottom, team to team, as that era. Is this going to go? Nope. I hit the backboard. And I hope I get comments from people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about in that respect of not knowing basketball. But again, I've been watching the sport for 4 decades now, and I can't buy a bucket. Give me that ball back. Seriously? I'm missing the 4-footers now. And he whiffs on the dunk. But we've got a 17-point lead here. Make it 19. But imagine if you can, being an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid in the 80s, having been playing stodgy... Oh, hey, we get to actually try a free throw here. So this is how the free throws work. You got to get that as close to that ring as you can. That one's going to go. And that's how you knock the free throws down. I find it interesting that they treat it as a jump shot. But again, imagine you're a kid in 1985, 6, 7, and you've been playing games for a couple years. And you see the technological evolution go from what you remember on systems like the Intellivision or the Commodore 64 or stuff like that. Steph 3, nailed it. And we're already at 63 points. Got a 23-point lead. With about 4.5 spins of the clock to go. And then you get a game that is just this free-flowing and fast-paced. And obviously, you can't tell because you're not here with me playing it, but once you really get the controls down and you remember how everything is able to function, it's just so much fun. And the only real equivalent to this game that I can think of that really got people's attention was NBA Jam. And NBA Jam is, by a long way, my favorite sports-based arcade game. With the one notable exception of Punch-Out. Because I'm a boxing nut. And at some point, we will play a version of Punch-Out. That's going to happen. The one thing that used to frustrate me about this game was that when you would play Boston, they almost never missed a shot. But the precision of the passing in this game was half the fun. Because if you could find an open man, finding an open man was not hard. And like, you're able to bust off transitions like that. From the corner. Knocks down the elbow jumper. And it's already, we're almost up by 30 and we've got under a minute to go. This could end up being a washout. To be fair, I haven't played this game in a couple of years. Oh, airball. So I was not expecting to build up this much of an advantage before halftime. Oh, and I couldn't get the shot up before halftime. Now, the cool thing about the halftime period is that they'll have this little interlude with the cheerleaders who come out. The one thing I will tell you to pay attention to is the mascots that come out. Because we'll see the New York Eagle, but the Boston Frog, the character sprite that they used, is not exactly one I think would fly nowadays, and you'll see why. Because Let's just say the hand placement is a little suspect. Right? It looks like that frog is looking to try and grab somebody in a fairly malicious way. And I know that's not something they really thought about back in the 80s of how that's going to be interpreted. But that's really the only major blemish that I can think of in what is otherwise a really, really well-constructed game. Ooh, he intercepted the pass. Now, the one thing I don't remember about this game is if the difficulty curve goes up in the second half. In some games like this, in order to make it more competitive, the opposition tends to get a little bit stronger in the latter stages of the game. And I tried to pass it, and they picked off the pass. The other thing I always loved about this game is that when you could jump, the way the perspective is, you could soar in this game. Depending on where you started your jump. Back at the time where everybody was trying to dunk from the free throw line, you could realistically dunk from the free throw line. Or you could just come all the way up like that and then come flying in. And I understand it doesn't look like you're jumping that far, but to a 10-year-old kid, that was great. It was like, wow, I can really, really fly. So bang home another 3. Now, there was a couple of notable glitches in this game that people remember. There's one where you could take a 3 from the corner, from the deep corner down there, and always hit it. But I always prefer to do that 45-degree angle 3. See if I can hit another one. Yep, back-to-back 3s, and we're up over the 100-point mark. Chalupas for everybody. I say that because having covered the Portland Trailblazers early in my journalism career, and for the point of reference, yeah, I've been a journalist for the last 15 years. And I started off covering sports in Portland, Oregon. It was always fun going to the Rose Garden watching the Trailblazers play. Whoop. I didn't even try to steal that ball. I didn't realize I had it. And if every time they got over 100 points, one of the promotions that the Blazers had at the time was if they hit 100 points, everybody in the stadium got chalupas. Wow, that was a delayed effect. But we're already up 63 now. Or, excuse me, 43. Get my math right. Try another 3 ball. This is turning into a washout here. And that was the thing about this game. If you could get into a zone, it was not hard to start really just laying it into your opponent. Which, when you play 2-player, you could be fairly merciless about it. If there was a downside to this game, it's that trying to get blocks, like I said, was really difficult. You're better off taking your chances going for the steal and then potentially conceding the basket and then just coming in, grabbing the ball really quick. And if you understood how to play the angles and getting into a position where you could get the steal, then it was a lot better. But yeah, this has turned into a bona fide rout. But now they put on a little run here. Uh-oh. Give me that back. Three at the buzzer. Whiff. So we start the fourth period, and we are up by a paltry 47 points. As they get the breakaway. And because you didn't have the licensing yet, you kind of had to go by who you knew on the team. So, for somebody like me who could tell you the starting five of the Boston Celtics in 1987, and I still can, it was Dennis Johnson as the point guard, Danny Ainge as the 2, Larry was the 3, Kevin McHale was the power forward at 4, and the Chief Robert Parrish was the center. Yeah, I'm that much of a dork. But I can also tell you the starting five of the LA Lakers because we played them again pretty much every year in the finals. In that it was Magic running the point, Byron Scott was usually the 2 guard, Hollywood James Worthy was the 3 guard, the small forward, and they usually had somebody like either Kurt Rambis, Michael Cooper, or Michael Thompson as the power forward, and while he was still there, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the center. I'm at least happy to know that something I remember from my childhood of sports stuck all these years later. Give me that. And that you got different variations on the dunk. You had 3 options. You could do the backward, you could do the reverse dunk, you could do the 2-handed power dunk, or you could do the 1-handed windmill dunk. And the computer would totally pick them at random. It wasn't like if you hit a certain key code. Like, I'll come back in now, come back with another 2-hander and slam it on home. But that you could get high-scoring games like this. I mean, it's 138-94. I fully suspect that Boston will have over 100 points by the time this game is over. But if I can top the 150 plateau, I wouldn't be surprised either. And back in the 80s, this was the way most of these games went. Actual NBA games were like this because it was all about offense and transition and how you were able to generate points. And then in the 90s, you had teams like the Knicks and the Hawks and coaches like Pat Riley, who amazingly enough had been the coach of the Showtime Lakers in the 80s, saying, nope, we need to go back to grinding it down and making it like an 88-64 game, which was boring as dirt. Whiffed on the reverse. Ah. Another 3. Nailed it. So it's 148, 100 with 3 minutes thereabouts to go. Try another 3. Can we hit 150? Yes, we can. Couldn't get the dunk to go. Try it again. One-hander. Missed that one. Ah! Tried to shoot it again, but my B button jammed. Stupid controller. Oh, drew the charge. That was something that happened fairly rarely in this game, too. You didn't really get a charging foul, which is, in the rules of basketball, that's what it is. It wasn't a push. Well, they're slowly clawing their way back. They're only down by 47 still. Take the 3. That you didn't have a turbo button, I suppose nowadays most people would find fairly off-putting. But at the time, I didn't care. Just being able to have this sort of perspective and the ability to play a game this fast-paced. I mean, when you set it for a 5-minute quarter, the games just flew by. Let's the Hail Mary go. Will it hit it? No, but that is the ball game. So, when you win the game, you get this reward screen, and depending on which level you played at would depend on the color of the trophy you got. If you played on level 1, you get a bronze trophy. Played on the level 2, you get a silver trophy, and obviously if you played on level 3, you got a gold trophy. And that's the whole game. It was just letting you go ahead and you played it for a half an hour or so, and if you felt up to it, you played it again for another half an hour. So that is Double Dribble, everybody, and this has been a lot of fun. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and as always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and ring the bell for the latest content. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @Retrocade, and if there's a game you want to see featured, leave us a comment down below. Or drop me a tweet and let me know. And your options, again, are from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, and PlayStation 2. Don't forget, Sucker Punch Sunday coming tomorrow, where we will be taking on a classic fighting game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th genre, or a fighting platform game. I've already got it picked out. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You just have to tune in to watch. And also be sure to check out our continuing walkthrough, my first-time playthrough, of the 1994 Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic JRPG Final Fantasy VI. We're already approaching 20 episodes on that, and the story is heating up and getting good. So if you need something to take a break from your week or whatever, stop on by. The Retrocade is open 5 days a week. So until tomorrow, when we will have Sucker Punch Sunday, my name's Ronin. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, everybody, and I will talk to you then. Bye.